America's Voice Live, America's fastest growing news program. With Steve Gruber.
You've got to put America first. You do that by voting and bringing your friends to do the same.
Delivering the latest news, observations, and opinions. With the entire Real America's Voice team, America's Voice Live starts now.
Welcome to America's Voice Live. I'm Steve Gruber. Today is Monday, July 10th. Let's get into today's top stories, and thank you for being here to start the week. Donald Trump is keeping a significant lead over Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, even in his own state. An advisory board member for Donald Trump will join me to discuss this and what's going on. Meanwhile, a former FBI official is claiming that two top dog Democrats have been given special treatment by the FBI. Those details coming up next. And later, the Girl Scouts are opening up their summer camp rooms, not just to girls, but to boys. They'll all get to sleep together. It'll be very exciting. We'll discuss with the founder of the American Heritage Girls. We'll tell you what this all means. These stories and more coming up on Monday's edition of America's Voice Live. Now, I never thought I would see the day when major outlets of the media would be running cover to discredit A-list movie stars like Mel Gibson and Jim Caviezel for having the guts to produce a movie on the horrible worldwide trafficking of kids, most of whom are sex slaves. But here we are. Rolling Stone magazine, The Washington Post, CNN, and numerous others are smearing the movie Sound of Freedom as a QAnon conspiracy theory and discrediting it altogether. But what's certain is that millions of people have seen the film already since it was released on the 4th of July, and it's nothing at all like what they're saying. Sound of Freedom is outperforming the gutless Indiana Jones movie, for example, that once again destroyed an iconic Hollywood character in pursuit of woke justice, with a girl boss running Harrison Ford all over the screen. So bad, it's been panned by every critic I could find, and it's going to leave Disney with a $150 million loss. Nice job, everyone. But I digress. Let's continue with The Sound of Freedom, that paints a very dark and ugly picture of the world beyond the edge of the light, where criminals, make that monsters, live and prey upon children that are stolen and then sold over and over and over again. I watched the movie in disgust and horror yesterday, and I believe there is nothing at all that should be controversial about this film. Nothing. Human trafficking of kids is real and should be condemned by everyone, but instead it is the movie and the people that are in it that are being attacked, if you can believe it. Just think about that. They're the ones being attacked. What possible reason could the mainstream media have to beat up on this film and to treat it like it's some kind of a partisan issue? Remember, this is the same media that suppressed stories about Harvey Weinstein and Jeffrey Epstein. Listen to this from CNN.
And you seem pretty familiar with him because he doesn't really hide his association with this real wild plot that involves, drinking the blood of children and things like that.
No, he doesn't hide it at all. And you have a lot of people who are in this world of QAnon who say, they don't know what that is. They've never heard of it. They're just asking questions. With somebody like Jim Caviezel, he is openly embracing it. He's openly using its catchphrases and its concepts. He's speaking at QAnon conventions. And this film is being marketed to either specific QAnon believers or to people who believe all of the same tenets as QAnon, but claim they don't know what it is.
By the way, let me get this out of the way first, okay? These are the same people who believe that a Russian P-tape existed with Donald Trump and prostitutes in Moscow. These are the same people who believe Trump was Putin's puppet in the White House. These are the same people who believe the vaccines still work as intended. They also believe Joe Biden is the most popular president in history with 81 million votes, and that he and his son Hunter have done nothing wrong, except for Hunter not paying taxes, of course. They also believe that law enforcement is right when they say they'll just never be able to find the person who bought cocaine and brought it into the most secure building in the world. So who are the real conspiracy theorists here anyway? Keeping all of that in mind, here's more from CNN. Listen.
The Sound of Freedom does focus on a real issue of sex trafficking, but that theme, it's sort of like that kernel of truth that feeds the QAnon conspiracy theory. Tell us how those two things work together.
Sure. And the most durable and the most believable conspiracy theories are not entirely false. There's something in them that is true and the rest of it is false. But the believers point to the one true thing and they say, oh, you don't believe that this particular thing is true. In terms of child trafficking, we know trafficking is real. We know it has real victims. No one is denying that. But these films are created out of moral panics. They're created out of bogus statistics. They're created out of fear. And with something like Sound of Freedom, it specifically is looking at QAnon concepts of these child trafficking rings that are run by the high-level elites, and only people like Tim Ballard and only people like Jim Caviezel, and by extension, only people like the ticket buyer can help bring these trafficking rings down. So there's a very participatory element. You're not just going to see a movie, you're just killing 2 hours on a hot day. You are helping bring down these pedophile rings and save children. Now, it's not true, but it's a very comforting and it's a very warm feeling to have.
Really? You see, the problem here is that none of that is true. Nothing in that CNN report there is true. None of those things are portrayed in this film at all. There's no blood drinking. There are no elites. There are no conspiracy theories. Nothing about QAnon at all. Every single one of those things is a lie. They've never seen the film. That guy right there has never watched the film. This is a film about drug cartels, dirtbags, street predators, and pedophiles preying upon kids and then passing them around like pieces of meat, selling them over and over again. It really is shocking that major media outlets are not just smearing the Sound of Freedom and blasting the people who made this gutsy film, a true story, I might add, about real men like Timothy Ballard, but they're also dismissing the main point of the entire story. Kids, millions of them today are sex slaves worldwide. Wake up. It also shows strong alpha men who put their lives, their fortunes, and their freedom on the line to save kids in some of the most dangerous places in the world. But remember, these are the same left-wing publications and networks that celebrated the sexualization of kids in the movie Cuties. Remember that? The ones that defend pornographic books in the libraries of elementary schools and say parents should not have any say on what teachers tell kids about sex, sexuality, sexual behavior, or anything involving these subjects. They defend what is evil and attack anything that shines a spotlight into that darkness and the darkness of people's hearts. Anyone who would involve themselves with pedophilia or try to change such words to minor attracted person should be sent to prison forever. Forever. Seriously, sexually abusing a child should be a mandatory life sentence, or maybe worse. And the film star, Jim Caviezel, he's heard all of this criticism too. He has a message. Listen.
I'd like to, first of all, thank Angel, Harmon Brothers, Jordan, Neil, Jeff, for being extra brilliant, for believing in us and having to overcome the fact that saving children should never be a controversy. It should be the quickest thing that any of us would ever do. But I've always said, do you want to be liked by many, the world, Hollywood, or do you want to be loved by one, which is God? Because love don't come from man, it comes from above. So I'm sitting here thinking about all you amazing Americans that are fighting the battle and helping us in this war against the greatest evil that has ever been. Because you know that God's children are not for sale. I want to thank you all for helping us reach 2 million tickets. And thanks for not letting the media silence us. Your voices were heard. I love you.
I mean, there's a man standing up and doing the right thing. I think everyone should see this movie, everyone. I think teenagers should see it for sure so they understand the true nature of evil in this interconnected world. They should understand what real men do to protect those that cannot protect themselves, the helpless. And they should fully understand just how blatantly the left is lying about this movie. And I'm not the only one that thinks that. Listen to this.
Hey everybody, I'm Dana White. There's a new movie out called The Sound of Freedom, and it's about human trafficking. More importantly, the trafficking of children. This is a disgusting, horrific issue that's happening all around the world, and it's not getting better, it's getting worse. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna give any of my UFC employees that wanna see this movie free tickets to go see, and I would like to encourage other executives to do the same at their company. Here's Mel Gibson with some more information on The Sound of Freedom.
One of the most disturbing problems in our world today is human trafficking, and particularly the trafficking of children. Now, the first step in eradicating this crime is awareness. Go see Sound of Freedom.
You know, Dana White's correct. So is Mel Gibson, by the way. More executives should be following his lead. Maybe Disney should too. After all, they had the rights to this film. But it ended up just not being something they wanted to put a shining light on. This film's been in production for 5 years. It's basically been done for 5 years, but roadblock after roadblock after roadblock kept preventing its release. I wonder why that is. But despite the leftist media's best efforts, the film has obviously already made a huge impact culturally, shining a light on the massive worldwide problem of sexual slavery and children. Listen here.
What have you learned from this film about what is driving this child sex trafficking?
Well, obviously the money. It's $152 billion a year business, and to put that in perspective, that would be every NFL football team, pro sport in the U.S., also World Cup soccer, and then sending your kid to college. Every 18-year-old gets to go to Stanford University for 4 years.
Yeah.
That would be $152 billion.
What is your hope for this film?
Well, right now, we're looking for 2 million people to come to the theater for the 2 million trafficked children. Now, it's a lot bigger empire than that because there's organ harvesting and all of that other stuff.
Can we end this scourge? I mean, it is the most evil thing on the planet.
Well, you got to start with having a south border. Okay, we don't have a south border. And that means we're, celebrating 4th of July.
We're complicit in it. There's no question about that.
But and the media needs to go down there. Why don't they go down there? They need to meet these agents. It's horror.
Yeah.
Hopefully that'll occur, but the politicians aren't going to move until the people move.
The people have to move. It makes me wonder why Jeffrey Epstein's little black book has never been found. Remarkable, isn't it? Speaking of, one of Epstein's victims spoke about being trafficked on Sex Island for years. Listen to her story.
I have spent the last 17 years in my own prison for what she, Jeffrey, and all the co-conspirators did to me. I was raped repeatedly. I was raped 3 times a day sometimes. And I was not the only girl on that island. There was a constant stream of girls being raped over and over and over again. And yes, Ghislaine must die in prison because I've been in hell and back for the last 17 years.
And 27 for me.
I was 10 years old when Liz Stein was being trafficked. I was 10. That is how long the sex trafficking ring has been going on.
These are the stories. These are the stories being smeared by the mainstream media. These are the stories that they're trying to discredit, call it QAnon, conspiracy theory, elitists, and lies. The only ones lying are Rolling Stone, The Washington Post, CNN, MSNBC, and all the rest. Dishonestly about child sex trafficking. It is mind-boggling. It's just amazing that somehow, amidst all the leaks about Donald Trump and the DOJ, nothing has come out about Epstein. His client list has never been leaked. Nothing of the sort. And is the DOJ even looking into his client list? It's been years now, but so far, gee, it's remarkable. All of those names of high-profile people that we do know have been kept secret. I mean, we all know he was involved in peddling underage kids to the highest bidders, and now there are tens of thousands of missing right here in the United States. Just like Jim Caviezel was talking about, right here in the United States because of President Joe Biden's disastrous border policies. How many? Well, here's Congressman Chip Roy explaining.
Your current system has 85,000 kids they can't find. What in the world? It's the New York Times. It's not Fox News. And we're we're sitting here talking about a fiction of saying there's an infant rolling through somewhere outside of Eagle Pass right now, begging to claim asylum. The infant is not doing that. This is absurd. You know it's absurd. We have language here put forward in good faith, trying to figure out how to stop what I see in this chart behind me, where unaccompanied children are spiking through the roof, have been doing so since Democrats have been in charge of the administration. The only blip is when you had a Republican in charge. You had kids on top of train cars getting abused by cartels. You got numbers spiking through the roof since President Biden has been in office. And all we want to simply do is say we want to get them home to their families. We want to get them to the place where they can go to a port of entry so we can take care of them. And we're being traded by my colleagues on the other side of the aisle with where are the 1,000 that aren't being reunified? Well, go find the 85,000 that we don't even know where the hell they are under the Biden administration.
85,000 kids. And the number, as you know, is probably much higher. That's what they admit to. And who could forget the Health and Human Services whistleblower alleging the United States is acting as a middleman for child sex trafficking at the border because of Biden's failed, disastrous policies? The media doesn't care about that either. Here's one more.
I thought I was going to help place children in loving homes. Instead, I discovered that children are being trafficked through a sophisticated network that begins with recruiting in home country, smuggling to the U.S. border, and ends when ORR delivers a child to a sponsor. Some sponsors are criminals and traffickers and members of transnational criminal organizations. Some sponsors view children as commodities and assets to be used for earning income. This is why we are witnessing an explosion of labor trafficking. Now, whether it's intentional or not, it could be argued that the United States government has become the middleman in a large-scale, multi-billion-dollar child trafficking operation that is run by bad actors seeking to profit off of the lives of children.
So why is this a partisan issue for the left? These left-wing media corporations actually spend more time looking for a non-existent P-tape than investigating the very real issue of child sex slaves, millions of them, or the problems of missing kids at the southern border, or Epstein. Why isn't any journalist trying to get his client list exposed? It's because the American media today is set up to protect Democrats and socialists in power, not the innocent or the downtrodden, certainly not the average American citizen or the children forgotten in the shadows. See The Sound of Freedom. See this movie. Share it with everyone you can. Why? Because it matters. Coming up after the break, a new poll is out, and it is showing that the good people of Florida still prefer President Trump over their own Governor Ron DeSantis. Donald J. Trump for President Advisory Board member Jason Meister will join me with details. Coming up next on ABL. All right, well, good to have you back here on a Monday. A new poll shows that GOP Floridians want Donald Trump back in office, even over their own Governor Ron DeSantis, who won his last election by 20 points. The Florida Atlantic University Main Street poll Cam Lab poll shows that Trump holds a 20-point lead over DeSantis. 50% of Republicans in the state would vote for the former president if primaries were held today. 30% say they'd pick their own governor. Why is that? John Meister describes it this way. Take a look.
I want to vote for the guy who has the most arrests, the most indictments, the most raids of his home, because that's the guy that the establishment wants to get rid of because he's putting the American people first. And this establishment has continued to put the American people last. And so that's what this is all about.
Joining us live now, Donald J. Trump for President Advisory Board member Jason Meister. Jason, looks like the president is more popular than ever, even in Florida. Of course, he lives there, too. What do you make of it? I mean, let's be fair. The governor came out, his campaign launched, 6 weeks ago, excuse me. Really, it's been flat. Tell us about it.
Yeah. First of all, thanks for having me. Look, Team DeSantis has been banking on the idea that the indictments would gradually chip away at Trump's support. And the exact opposite has happened. They have been rocket fuel, political rocket fuel, that is. You see that Trump raised $35 million in the second quarter of this year. That was double what he raised prior to the indictments. And the more that people get to know Ron DeSantis on the campaign trail, the more they don't like him. I think you have a problem with the campaign, you have a problem with the candidate, and the American people are rallying around, and the Republican base is rallying around President Trump. Ron DeSantis is in many ways a knockoff of President Trump. And why would you go for the knockoff when you can have the actual thing?
Well, absolutely true. You know, and we saw this UFC entrance over the weekend. Unannounced, surprise visit. The president comes out of the tunnel. The place goes wild, Jason. The place just goes absolutely wild.
Yeah, look, Trump's energy levels are through the roof. You see him with all these celebrities. He comes out there with Dana White. The entrance was electric. And Ron DeSantis just doesn't have that. He doesn't have that charisma. He kind of has that Jeb Bush energy levels. And I think that, I don't know that he'll even make it to Iowa. Everyone's talking about how Ron DeSantis is the guy, that the second place guy. But I think Vivek Ramaswamy you might see a bump in the coming weeks from Vivek. He's got way better energy levels. He's saying a lot of the right things. But in my opinion, all of these people are just running. There's no chance any of them have any actual path to succeeding against President Trump. And I think that you'll see that play out as the campaign continues to move forward.
So what do you think the themes are that are resonating? Obviously, the president has a lot to say about, the border and the economy and Joe Biden's weakness. Where do you think he's really connecting with the people?
Well, it goes back to that clip you played early on in this interview where I discussed that, the American people, they see that the rule of law has deteriorated. They see that the FBI, the CIA, the Department of Justice have been weaponized against President Trump and the First America movement. And I think that is the most important issue going into 2024 is that we have a president that understands that the DOJ and the intelligence community and the administrative state has been weaponized by the Democrats. It's an extension of the Democratic Party. They're using it to gain political power. And Americans, that is not America. Americans don't like to see that when their government is weaponized against a political party or a candidate. And that's why I think you're seeing so much support rallying around President Trump. Now, obviously, immigration is a very important issue. Our border is completely open right now. We have fentanyl deaths. We have fentanyl coming into our communities. We have homelessness. We have all these other issues. Our economy, we're seeing 40-year high inflation. So there's lots of other things. But I think that the weaponization of the U.S. government, whether it's the Russia hoax that Hillary Clinton paid for, the Steele dossier that essentially put our country in a constitutional crisis for years, or if you look at these indictments, arrests, and raids of Mar-a-Lago of the president's private residence, I think that's what the American people has resonated with them.
I think people are so over these raids and the indictments and the charges. People know this is all politically motivated. They know that, Jason. And Americans, Democrats alike, independents for sure, they believe in a sense of fair play. And they're not getting it here, that's for sure. A sense of fair play. I'll give you the last word.
That's 100% right. You nailed it right on the head. I couldn't say it better myself. The bottom line is we have to essentially dismantle the administrative state in this country and rebuild it from scratch, take it down to the studs. And that's what President Trump is committed to doing. And I think the American people are going to rally around this president as we move forward into 2024. And I think Ron DeSantis doesn't really have a chance. I don't even think he'll make it to Iowa at this point. He's down, I think, 30 points in Iowa. He's obviously down in his own state on a head-to-head match by 50 points to President Trump. So I think that's what you're going to see as we go down this path.
Jason, it's a long way between here and there, but not really. I mean, August, we start debating. And if Iowa holds true, they're going to be holding up their caucus on January the 15th, which, let's be honest, that's not too far away. Jason Meister, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate it. Now, coming up after the break, and what seems to be an everyday occurrence anymore, there are some new bombshell allegations about special treatment. Dianne Feinstein and Eric Swalwell's Chinese spy sagas got to the FBI. That story and so much more after the break. Well, a former FBI official says that Representative Eric Swalwell and Senator Dianne Feinstein were protected from public corruption investigations regarding their involvement with staffers tied to the Chinese Communist Party. I bet you're shocked to hear that. Journalist Jerry Dunleavy says that a former FBI official is claiming that top FBI executives protected the two Democrats during an investigation years ago. Christine Fang, Fang was a Chinese national rumored to have sexual relations with Representative Eric Swalwell, and the official says that evidence suggests she may have facilitated a donation of $100 or so to Swalwell's campaign in 2014, which would classify as an illegal foreign donation. And an internship was also provided to a family friend of hers as a favor. The FBI opened up a public corruption case into Swalwell, but chose to shut it down soon afterwards, allegedly to the dismay of many agents who wanted to continue but were opposed by higher-ups. In Feinstein's case, her staffer, Russell Lowe, was a U.S. citizen who was ethnically Chinese, but who had communications with the CCP. The FBI also opened an investigation into Russell Lowe and Dianne Feinstein, but just as the agency began to finalize a FISA surveillance warrant on Lowe, it was called off by the FBI Deputy Director Sean Joyce, who decided to give Feinstein a defensive briefing instead, the same thing that was given to Swalwell. Although both staffers were found to be potential tools for the CCP, the investigations were not pursued, and to this day, we don't know the damage that was done. Remarkable. The New York Times now reporting that one of New York City Mayor Eric Adams' claims about a fallen officer is just a tall tale. More specifically, about the fallen officer's photo, which shortly after Adams' swearing in, he claimed he had the photo of the officer in his wallet for decades. The photo was of the late Officer Robert Venable, who Adams knew from his time in the NYPD. Adams produced the pictures during several public events, and his office claimed the photograph was obtained by Adams 30 years ago. But staffers have now told the New York Times that his city staff produced that picture, and they were ordered to make it look worn down and old by printing it in black and white and splashing coffee on the photograph, among other things. Spokesperson for Mayor Adams responded, quote, efforts to attack the mayor here would be laughable if it were not so utterly offensive. Spokesperson also attacked the news outlet for, quote, its unsuccessful campaign to paint the mayor as a liar. Coming up after the break, the Girl Scouts are now allowing biological males, that's right, boys, to sleep in the girls' room. What could possibly go wrong with this idea? Patty Garibay with Heritage Girls will join me next to discuss on America's Voice Live. Well, the Girl Scouts of America will allow biological males to room with girls at summer sleep camps. Yeah, according to the organization, here's what the Girl Scouts stated in the camp information booklet. Girl Scouts is proud to be the premier leadership organization for girls in our country. The organization welcomes members of all gender identities and expressions, including at our camps. So I guess they're not really the leading organization for girls in our country. Therefore, we are offering an opportunity for families to select their preferred sleeping accommodation for their camper. The booklet goes on to explain that parents can choose from 3 housing options for their children. No preference, gender inclusive for cisgender females, non-binary transgender, and female only for cisgender females. Parents also receive a mandatory Meet My Camper form, which includes an official option on pronouns like she, her, they, them, or he, him. Girl Scouts, he, him. Yeah. Here with me to discuss and offer a better alternative is Patty Garibay, who is the founder and executive director of the Heritage Girls organization. There's their logo. Patty, good to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Steve. It's good to be back. This is really crazy. You know, it's not just the boys sleeping with the girls, but there's also a new camp culture code that all staffers, parents, and campers are to read and to agree with. And this includes such woke ideology as basically because you are white, you have special privilege just because of the color of your skin. And also that you need to admit to this. And if you, as a parent or volunteer, do not agree with this, then really Girl Scout camp is not for you. They go on to talk about faith and spirituality. And they say if your faith or spirituality is differentiating from the use of pronouns, or you have a problem with that, then Girl Scout camp is not for you. I guess you might say so much for an all-inclusive organization.
Yeah, all-inclusive. Here's the problem. From where I have 2 daughters, I look around the world and I see women under attack all the time. Men are under attack for being too masculine. Women just being, erased.
Yes.
Did they not get the memo from Bud Light? Did they not figure this out? Did they not realize that all this woke propaganda about, anything they want to be, that we as parents don't buy that? And I say we as Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we don't buy that. And we're not going to buy it. And they've reached a breaking point. We're rejecting that across the board. Any thinking person, any parent knows this is garbage.
Absolutely. I think the thing about it is, the agenda is more important than the practicality of it all. And the woke mob is so prescribed to this Marxist ideology that I believe that they have, and to really affect the kids. I mean, think about camp, Steve. It is a very intimate setting. It's where you're away from your parents generally. This is done by camp counselors that are hired from who knows where. And yet we're going to experiment with sexual ideologies and talking about these discussions. You cannot talk about romantic relationships, but you can talk about your gender identity according to this camp culture code. This is really outrageous. When you think about what we do at American Heritage Girls at camps, is we learn how to really climb tall areas and to find fun little critters in the woods and to make crafts and to learn how to cook in the outdoors. The stuff that kids should be doing, not talking about rap sessions about their gender identities.
Oh, come on, Patty. You're such a stiff. Maybe they could identify as squirrels and rabbits and raccoons. Maybe they can be furries, as they call it. They can sleep with the kids. I mean, what's wrong with that? Maybe they can identify as one-armed people and have their arms sawed off at the local surgeon. I mean, come on, Patty, you're being a little picky, don't you think?
I probably am. I wonder if there's a litter box in every cabin. I'm not quite sure.
For the boys I went to Boy Scout camp with, there probably should have been. Boys are boys, girls are girls. Look. They can say whatever they want. There are differences between male and female. That's the way it is. And I think you're doing the right thing. Tell me about your organization. What is Heritage Girls? What are you guys doing, and how long has it been around?
Well, I'm the founder of American Heritage Girls, and I had served the Girl Scouts for 12 years and really love their program. Of course, I was a Girl Scout. This is sort of a tradition in many people's families. But boy, the Girl Scouts had changed in the 90s when they kicked the word God out of their Girl Scout promise, and then they kicked out all of his, what he believes or what he teaches us to be truth. And so when you do that with a character development program, what dictates that foundation is really going to be the cultural mores of today, and we all know where those are today. So in 1995, not because I wanted to, but because I felt like I needed to, I started something new for my own daughter. And here we are 28 years later, and we've got 60,000 members across the U.S. in every state, in almost every community. Parents wanting sensible armament for this battle that their girls are in. They want their daughters to be brought up in the way they should go and to be able to have holistic mentors and to be able to know that there's right and wrong and that being a girl is a wonderful thing to be celebrated.
Yeah, being a boy is wonderful. Being a girl is wonderful. Being, told the truth.
Yes.
Is a wonderful thing, and that's what scouting's always been about. My son is involved with Boy Scouts. My brother was an Eagle Scout. I was a Boy Scout for a period of time. I've been around scouting my whole life. This is far afield from where it's supposed to be. I'll give you the last word.
We must, as parents, we must be careful of the indoctrination that our kids are receiving and sending your kids away to Girl Scout camp and thinking that it's going to be a wholesome, productive, fun-filled, idealistic kind of a journey. I disagree with that. I would warn the parents. Check it out before you send your kids anywhere. Make sure that your after-school activities are aligned with your faith values, and consider exploring AmericanHeritageGirls.org to learn more about this amazing character development program for girls that is based on a biblical worldview.
There you go. Patty, fight the good fight, my friend, and keep the faith. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
All right, there you go. Come on. Little common sense, please, people. Coming up after the break, the CDC has been leaving diagnosis codes off of Minnesota death certificates. The ones that cite COVID-19 vaccines as a cause of death. Yeah, we're not going to put that on there. More on this big story after the break on America's Voice Live. Well, Just the News reporting the CDC admits to omitting vaccine-related death codes. The Brownstone Institute's John Bodine Sr. is suing Massachusetts for falsely labeling COVID death certificates. Bodine was expelled from law school for refusing the COVID vaccine mandates. He was interviewed on Alpha News Friday. Listen to this.
So the person on the death certificate, the doctor put down for underlying causes, COVID vaccine second dose 10 hours prior to death, comma, history of COVID infection May 2020. This person died January 5th, 2021. So on the death certificate, the CDC put on U071 for COVID, right? Even though the connection of the COVID infection resolved months ago to the death of this patient is tenuous at best, that got onto the death certificate. However, the CDC did not put an ICD code for COVID vaccine second dose that happened 10 hours prior to the guy dropping dead.
Oregon lawmakers filed a similar lawsuit alleging fraud across all states. CDC maintains COVID vaccines are safe. Of course they do. Bud Light is no longer king of beers and continues to experience declining sales for the fourth consecutive month, plummeting from number 1 to number 15. The downfall began with the marketing disaster with trans influencer Dylan Mulvaney back in April the 1st, leading to 2 top-tier executives being fired from a conservative boycott. Mulvaney took to Instagram claiming the brand never reached out and has been ridiculed and is fearful to leave home. Anheuser-Busch suffering a staggering $27 billion market share loss. The YouGov poll of 1,464 individuals surprisingly revealed the number of Americans who like Bud, and Bud Light remains unchanged. According to the poll, Guinness, Corona, and the Heineken have risen to the most favored spots, but the top beer in the U.S. is now held by Modelo, knocking Bud Light out of the top position held for over 20 years. A recent article in the Boston Globe written by a Yale psychiatry resident, Amanda Joy Calhoun, suggests body cameras as a solution to hold healthcare professionals accountable for racism. She alleges accounts of racism and discriminatory treatment toward black patients in hospitals. Calhoun shared personal experiences highlighting racial disparities, including witnessing black patients unnecessarily restrained and a teenage gunshot victim left untreated to die. She said body cameras may not prevent racist behavior, but can provide evidence for investigations. Of course, Calhoun tweeted this: doctors make crucial decisions, yet racist doctors have little accountability. Even when they harm patients, it's time to lay everything on the table. It's time for doctors to wear body cams. Sign me up. I don't think so. A 22-year-old transgender, Rick Valerie Koolhaas, has been crowned Miss Netherlands. Yep, the first transgender to do so, and will now compete in the upcoming Miss Universe pageant. This marks the second time a transgender woman will compete in Miss Universe, following the first instance in 2018. Transgender contestants have been allowed to participate since 2012. The Miss Universe organization, previously owned by former U.S. President Donald Trump, is now owned by Thai businesswoman Ann Jakray Jatatip. I think I got that right. That was close. Earlier this year, openly transgender contestant Daniela Arroyo Gonzalez selected to compete in the Puerto Rican competition. This year's Miss Universe 2023 pageant will be held in El Salvador. May the best woman win. All right, Massachusetts is the latest state to approve driver's licenses for illegal immigrants. The Work and Family Mobility Act allows the illegals to obtain a driver's license without proving their immigration status. Democrat Governor Maura Healey cites the economy, public safety, and having insured and licensed drivers for the move. The number of illegal immigrants in the state has skyrocketed, with over 800 illegals recorded by May 2022, an alarming 8,000% from 2021, compelling the state to allocate $85 million for shelters, hotel rooms, and assistance to school districts. 19 other states of the District of Columbia have enacted similar laws. Heritage Foundation's Border Security and Immigration Center Director Laura Reese warns the move could lead to other downstream benefits, including voting for illegal migrants. And the National AI Advisory Committee, Chair Miriam Vogel, has created government regulations and interventions in the pursuit of inclusivity through artificial intelligence. According to the Daily Caller, she believes that government intervention is necessary to ensure that AI creates more opportunities, jobs, education, and inclusivity. Vogel is also the president and CEO of Equal AI, whose focus emphasizes the role of government and civil society in mandating expectations for reducing unconscious bias. The Biden administration has been actively involved in promoting AI policies that promote racial equity, of course, with Vogel playing a key advisory role, of course. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention under fire for its guidance on trans people breastfeeding their babies. Gee, I can't imagine why. The CDC's posted on their official website, chest feeding for transgender and non-binary individuals, techniques for biological men to chest feed. Chest feed. Concerns are being raised by doctors for the failure of the CDC to address the potential health risks posed to infants consuming breast milk produced by individuals undergoing gender reassignment surgeries and taking hormones such as doperidone, which can pass into breast milk and cause irregular heartbeat in babies and possible long-term health risks. Dr. Miriam Grossman was on Real America's Voices War Room today. She is the author of The Lost and Trans Nation, a child psychiatrist's guide out of the madness. Here's what she had to say about the CDC's madness overall. Listen.
They have this adverse effect. It's called galactorrhea. It means that a man's breast tissue begins to secrete a substance. That substance is not breast milk. Furthermore, that substance that is given to these infants has chemicals in it. So those drugs that are given to those men who think that they can breastfeed, those chemicals are going to be absorbed by the infant.
Yeah, whatever happened to not taking anything other than Tylenol during pregnancy, and definitely not giving your newborn anything, not even Tylenol, without a doctor's approval? Whatever happened to that? Well, we misplaced it. We'll get back to the news after this quick break and a message from our sponsor, Birch Gold. As central banks in countries like China, India, and Australia began transitioning to a digital currency, the Federal Reserve has been contemplating the same for the U.S. With a digital currency, the government could track every single purchase you make. Officials could even prohibit you from purchasing certain products or even easily freeze or seize part of all your money. Yeah, they can do that. These are some of the reasons concerned Americans reach out to Birch Gold. They want to have a physical asset that's independent from the U.S. dollar. Gold, held tax sheltered in a retirement account. Learn if gold is right for you. Text America to 989898 and they'll send you a free information kit on gold. With an A-plus rating with the Better Business Bureau, thousands of happy customers, countless 5-star reviews, Birch Gold has been helping my listeners from the very beginning. Text America to 989898 and claim your free information kit on gold, because if a central bank digital currency becomes reality, it'll be nice to have some gold to depend on, now wouldn't it? After the break, we'll have a story that reminds us of how wonderful America is, plus your answers to our America's Voice question of the day. That's right. Have you seen the movie The Sound of Freedom yet? What are your thoughts? All right, well, a few surfers were out on the water last Saturday off Tourmaline Beach, which is north of San Diego, when they spotted a seal pup. The seal pup. Drone footage caught the entire scene as the seal pup was caught visiting California surfers and even jumping onto a surfboard to apparently bathe in the sun and ride the waves with his new human friends. The surfers reached out to SeaWorld when they first spotted the pup so that experts could make sure the baby seal was healthy. A SeaWorld official said that it appeared healthy, so there was no need to intervene, as the pup also appeared to be old enough to care for itself. Some surfers speculated the baby seal's mother had died, but SeaWorld told local outlets they did not receive reports of a dead seal anywhere, so who knows. Seal pups naturally friendly and will approach humans, and their mothers will often lead them to go hunting. So, hey, there it is, making America great by hanging out with the seals. Now, have you seen the movie The Sound of Freedom yet? What are your thoughts on the movie? Christina Smith, powerful movie. My husband and I drove home in silence. Now we want to know how we can help. Can't stop thinking about the children. My feelings exactly. Jason Mickelborg, how do we assist operations of finding and rescuing these kids? Great question, Jason. Now that we know the problems there the way we do, this movie has impact. Mary M. Link, not yet. A local city police department is offering free tickets to see it tomorrow night. Go see it, Mary. Susan Logan Taylor, this movie is a must-watch. Lori Leupold Lockman, eye-opening and tragic for the innocent kids. Marcia Ann Erb, great movie. Eye-opener for sure. Yes, it was very emotional, said Kim Hadley Avery. Lou Althouse Ellison, yes, everyone needs to see this. And I agree. We're good. Everyone needs to see this movie. Sound of Freedom. Go see it. Take your friends. Learn something about the darkness that goes on out there. And why is the left discrediting this movie? It shows how much they lack integrity overall. That's for sure. How much they lack integrity overall. I appreciate you being here. Don't forget to catch me tomorrow morning to kick your day off, 6 a.m., Real America's Voice, the Steve Rivers Show right here. And then we'll see you back here for America's Voice Live.
Here are some of the headlines we are featuring today from your favorite news outlets